cases as they come up. Just want to remind everybody to keep their cell phones on silent. Check those. And if we come up to the podium to speak, please give your name and your address. As we run through these, each case, we will have a staff presentation. Application will present their case. The applicant will. Then we'll open it up for a public hearing, and then additional comments from the applicant if needed. Close the public hearing, and the board will make a motion to either accept, deny, or defer, and then discussion among the board members, and then a vote. Our first order of business this evening is the adoption of the minutes. I had one thing I wanted to present as a change, but does anybody else have any other changes to the minutes? Okay. In the minutes, new business number 5, case number Z2141. One of the conditions that we had agreed to, and when I read that condition number 1, it just to me it's not very clear. It talks about installing a fence along the full length of the reduced wide, 20-foot wide buffer, and to a distance of 100 feet past the residence. Well, it wasn't clear to me. It's not really clear which direction you're going. So I just handed you recommended change for that, and I'll read that. An 8-foot high opaque fence / wall shall be installed within the reduced 20-foot wide buffer yard along the access driveway to the substation adjacent to parcel 465-00-00-5051 from the southern start of the reduced buffer near the substation to a distance of 100 feet north of the residence located on parcel 465-00-00-051. Period. Try to make it a little clear and concise and
Yes.
understandable. So I make a motion to make that change.
I'll second.
All in favor of the change in it? Okay. Without any other changes or comments to the motion, to the minutes, do we have a motion to approve as amended?
I approve as amended.
Second, all in favor, raise your hand. Thank you. All right, so our old business for this evening, Ronald E. Kelly, Jr., case number Z21-37. I believe that was rescinded. I'm sorry?
Formally withdrawn.
Formally withdrawn, okay. So we don't need to state anything else regarding that. Okay, new business, we have case Z21-44, Deborah Sprangenberg.
Excuse me, Chairman.
Yes.
I did want to tell the board, the applicant for number 4 of new business, which is the 165-foot monopole at 470 North Parham Road, has requested a deferral. The applicant is not able to attend the meeting. Also, we've received some comments from the residents, and perhaps the applicant needs to talk to some of the neighbors and also be here for the public hearing. So they have formally requested deferral for agenda item 4.
Okay. We can address that when we get to that one, or we can address it now?
I just want to make sure that the people that came
Okay.
for the public hearing knew that the applicant has requested deferral.
Okay, so,
Did they mention when they wanted to rehear it?
I believe the standard and correct me if
30
I'm
days?
wrong, but to the next meeting.
the next
January.
meeting.
So I
And then
make
go
a
from there.
motion to do. Okay.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. If we're going to hear the agenda out of order, we would need to make a motion to suspend the rules and reorder the numbering for the new
Okay,
business.
we'll just wait until we get to number
Okay.
4 then.
Thank you.
KC 21-44. The presentation from staff.
Good evening. I'm Marion Ray, zoning planner for York County. And I did not do that. There we are. All right, our first case tonight is Z21-44. Our applicant is Deborah Spangenberg. She is requesting a road frontage variance on 4211 Madonna Drive. That property is zoned AGC. You can see here, it is accessed by an easement off of Madonna Road. It does not have frontage, which is why she needs the frontage variance. Here you can see in the aerial, the property is Madonna Road. You can see bisecting the picture here, and that is McConnell's Highway to the south. And also with AGC, she wants to subdivide an acre. So if she gets her variance, she's gonna go before Planning Commission to rezone that portion of the land so she can do a 1 acre lot. We have to do the variance first for road frontage before we can rezone, so we don't end up with a variance for road frontage for something that cannot be accomplished. So, or I'm sorry, yeah, rezoning for something that cannot be accomplished. All right, and I have drawn up the plat here. The blue is the existing plat or a lot. The red is what the applicant proposes. And then the green is the existing easement. That easement serves the blue lot, the one directly below them, all the way down to Madonna Drive. It is existing, it's on the neighboring parcel there. We'll go through the findings. Extraordinary and exceptional conditions. The subject parcel is a non-conforming lot without legal frontage on Madonna Drive, but instead accesses a public road via an access easement. Landlocked parcels with sole access to the public road network through a recorded easement is a common property circumstance in York County, particularly in rural neighborhoods. The neighboring parcel to the southeast, the one directly below in the previous picture, also accesses Madonna Drive through the same easement as the subject parcel. Staff finds the proposed variance does not meet this particular criteria. And the conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. So based on the previous finding that there are no extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the property, staff has to find that this variance does not meet this criteria. For C, because of these conditions, the application of this chapter to the particular piece of property will effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. The applicant could put a second home on the lot due to the AGC zoning designation of the property. However, the applicant requires personal land as a collateral to finance the home she wishes to construct next to her son. The applicant must receive a road frontage variance to divide the land before she can request a rezoning to subdivide to that smaller piece. So she's got another step after tonight for the financing purposes. While the lot can have a second home built by right, the applicant is unable to do so for financial reasons. There are no physical or zoning constraints present on the property that would prohibit its continued residential use with 1 or 2 dwellings. Staff finds proposed variance does not meet this particular criteria. Although for D, authorization of a variance will not be in substantial detriment to the adjacent property or public good, the existing easement to Madonna Drive is to provide ingress-egress access to the subject parcel and the neighboring parcel to the south. The addition of a single home to this easement will not cause detriment to the neighboring properties. So staff finds the proposed variance does meet this criteria. So as staff finds that the proposed variance request does not meet all 4 criteria for an unnecessary hardship, staff has to recommend denial of the requested variance. However, we do have recommended conditions of approval. 1, if the division of the lot it has to be in substantial conformance with the proposed plat, and it was submitted in the staff report or the packet that you received. Individual utilities, well and septic, shall be provided for each of the lots and shall be contained entirely on their lots. And then a 25-foot legal easement shall be recorded and shall remain in perpetuity for ingress and egress for the proposed, residual, and adjacent tracts. All right. Do we have any questions for staff?
Yeah, actually I do. So, and maybe we've covered this, but refresh my memory if we have. When an easement's in place, if the conditions change, does the easement have to be revisited?
Yes.
Meaning, so there's an easement across someone else's property that's not under control of the property that's being split.
The easement addresses the two existing lots, not an additional lot. So we would want to make sure that easement also addresses the additional tax parcel number and lot, so there's no confusion in the future when none of us are here and everybody's wondering what happened. But the easement itself is for those two lots, the existing lots.
Right, but if you add a third lot to it, or if the property is being rezoned, do they have to come to a new agreement with that property owner with regards to that easement?
I think the easement can just be revised. I have spoken with the property owner, and she doesn't see any hardship on this.
Okay.
So if we, just say, we were to approve it, and under your conditions, would you suggest we change condition number 3 and make that more specific? Is it necessary?
To change, to make
Well, the 25-foot legal easement shall be recorded and shall remain in perpetuity, for ingress and egress for the proposed residual and adjacent tracts.
We just want to make sure that everything is addressed, that in the future, if somebody buys the smaller piece, all of a sudden realizes they don't actually have legal access.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
belts and suspenders time.
Yeah, to me, it sounds like it would need to be, I don't know if revised or new, because you're gonna have that larger lot to the right on the image that will not have an easement unless you record it, unless you put that into place.
Right.
Okay.
And in the packet that you received, she does show an easement to the existing home on the neighboring, on the residual lot across the smaller piece.
So we've had issues in the past where maintenance of easements has become problematic.
Yes, sir.
So is that included as part of the easement agreement or just access?
They can do a driveway agreement, which is a shared driveway agreement. It's civil, though. We can't actually require it, but we do recommend it.
Do you know how long that easement is now?
I want to say it was a few hundred feet. It was not. Now I can't remember. I don't have that information in front of me.
Looks like 500 some feet.
The two lots there, the lot in blue and the lot below it, are both about 8-9 acres. So I'll give you an idea of the distance there. I want to say it's less than 1,000 feet, somewhere between 700 and 900 feet.
So the packet says that the applicant, if approved, intends to pursue rezoning, which would be necessary.
Yes.
Is the entire lot to be rezoned or just the new lot?
Just the new lot. We have to get the variance first so we don't accidentally create a split zoned lot.
Okay.
Okay, any more questions for staff? No, thank you. Would the applicant please come forward?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Deborah Spannenberg, and I currently reside at 102 Quarter Horse Lane in Jacksonville, North Carolina. Excuse me. I've lived there for approximately 40 years and have just recently retired. My son has been talking with me a great deal about his concern for my well-being, that I live 5 plus hours away. And he's my only surviving child, so he's concerned about, as I age, that things are not going to be as easy for me as they have been in the past. So we were really excited when he bought this property, not realizing that there was a great big process to go through, that he would be able to give me an acre to build a home on. So I was really excited about that. But, so it is very important to me that I am able to rezone that area if possible. Family has always been extremely important to me, and I think it just has gone on down the line that now he's demonstrating that he as well is just putting family forefront. And my children grew up where they were able to run out the door of my home and run across the yard and go into their grandparents' house. And I was really hoping for the same kind of thing to happen with me. You know, they'd roll out of bed, I'd hear the door, and I'd get up and look, and here they are with one jammy leg up and one down, running barefoot, rubbing their eyes, going to grandma's house. So I would like that if possible. I understand that an accessory dwelling is a possibility on that land. The home that's on there, the primary dwelling, is less than 1,400 square feet. And in some of the reading that I've done, I realized that it said that the accessory dwelling should be 50% smaller. I guess no more than 50% of the size of the primary dwelling. So if you have 1,400 square feet, that would leave 700, actually less than 700, in order for me to build an accessory dwelling on that land. And with York, I think, I'm not sure if it's state or York County, say that the minimum size dwelling could be 850 square feet for a residence, if I'm correct. It would also be difficult to obtain a mortgage. I would require a mortgage for probably half of what I would be proposing to do. And in order to get that, any mortgage company that I am aware of would require land as collateral. So that would be difficult to have land as collateral that wouldn't potentially cause hardship for him if I were to become disabled or if I were to die. So I would not want to put him in that situation where he and the family might lose the property if, you know, he went into the mortgage with me. The easement here, excuse me, the easement actually seems to curve through that lot that's just south. Doesn't have a house on it, but it curves over and it goes towards his house. And in doing that, it would actually go through part of the red property that's projected for myself. So I actually would have to give him, you know, lifetime or permanent ability to use that easement into perpetuity. And it also goes across the south land rather than just along the edge. It does go across his land a little bit as well. One thing that I wanted to point out is off of that easement, there's actually a residential property that uses the easement to get to their property that has no road frontage as well off of the same easement. It's that little tiny square there. And also Barry, I spoke with all the neighbors there, and I've spoke with the Adams family, Barry, Fred, and Colette. And they said they had no problems with me, you know, building a home there on a separate acre. But they also use the easement to get to an accessory dwelling. Barry Adams does. He uses the easement for that, and then there's the road that goes back to the other dwelling. And I guess Fred, the south land, if he wanted to build a home there, he'd be using that easement as well. There has been cooperation so far in maintaining the easement. My son has been working on, he has probably a majority of the easement that's there. It's the longest portion. But the homeowner and Barry Adams on the road frontage, they have worked to do the part up to where it curves off, and my son and myself would continue the rest that would go on to the home. Be more than happy to do that. I don't think I really have anything else, so I just would like to, I would be pleased to become a citizen of your fair county and Rock Hill if you were to approve this variance. Thank you for your time.
Okay. I do have a couple of comments, I guess,
Yes.
concerning the 50% size.
Yeah.
We talked about this on a couple of cases before. So the new house could be either 1/2 or twice the size of the existing one.
Right, and I would be the sole occupant of that house, so I certainly do not need a house that's like 20,000 square feet heated.
So the current house, your son's house, is about 1,400 square feet
Or
currently.
slightly less,
Or less, and you want to build one of like size,
like size, yes,
1,400 square feet approximately,
or
okay.
less.
The other thing I was looking at as far as the easement, I think there's a difference between a driveway and an easement. I guess the legal easement just goes along the property line,
Oh,
whereas the driveway cuts across the property to the south or
okay,
and that one. So,
I didn't realize that.
yeah. All right. Board members have any further questions?
It appears that there are other approximately 1 acre lots in close proximity that are accessed by easements also.
Yes, that, will this work?
Should.
It's just whether I know how to use it or not.
There should be a gray pen up there.
A gray pen?
Yeah, that's it, and you can push the little silver button on the gray one.
Push, oh, okay, it's like a laser pointer? I got you, okay. Thank you.
There we go.
Okay, this little acre right here, the easement comes off of here and it curves over into that land. So around in here.
This lot's little easement actually comes through here.
Oh, okay.
It,
They access it.
So the folks in that L-shaped lot actually use that easement, they don't use the road frontage?
they don't use the road one. They come up the easement and
I
they
guess for
actually
them,
have
it
a
technically isn't an easement, but nonetheless.
4168 sign right by that easement, and then it comes around and it curves that direction. I didn't know that they had any access to the road.
Yeah,
At
they
one
got it
point,
right.
the property did belong to Barry Adams, and he gave the acre to his son, who then married, and they decided to move to Pennsylvania, from what Barry tells me. So the son sold the property. They rented it, I guess, for a while, and then they sold the property to the current people who are living there. But my son has actually said that he met him on the easement, as they were going to their property, or, as they were departing or coming in. So they do use that easement.
So who maintains the easement right now? Maybe this is a question for your son, but maybe you know. Who maintains the easement? Is it a shared responsibility or is one family? And if you can just, your name and address, please.
I'm Brandon Spanenberg, and I live at 4211 Madonna Drive. To clarify the easement situation, this is Barry Adams' property here. This is the property she was referring to. They access this property here. From the road, they take this easement, and then there is a drive along this property line, and that's how they access their house. They do not, in fact, access it from this easement. I wasn't even aware of that easement, but they do not access it from there. Barry Adams actually has a driveway here, right next to the easement, but he utilizes the easement to access a dwelling He likes to call it a she shed, but it,
Oh,
and it is currently at about this location here. And Barry tells me that him and, right before we bought the property, Jeanne and Barry actually split the money for the maintenance of this easement, since they both utilize it.
Okay,
Hopefully that clarified a little bit.
okay. So who maintains it from past their parcel up to your parcel?
I do.
You do, okay.
I do.
So it's a shared maintenance three-way, pretty much?
Yes, ma'am.
Right, okay. Thank you for clarifying.
Any further questions from the board? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. And then I think Randy might have wanted to speak.
Yes, please, you can come back.
I just wanted to, I think most everything has been covered as far as the logistics. I would just like to say this is very important to me. For reasons she already mentioned, I grew up across the lawn from my Nana and Papa, and they kind of helped raise me in a difficult situation. And that was integral to my upbringing. It was extremely important to me, and they helped me to be who I am today. And my mom is an incredibly good influence, both to myself, my wife, and my children. My children love her to death, and it would be extremely important and impactful to their lives if this was granted and they could just run over there whenever they wanted, although sometimes they may run over there when I don't want them to. It would be extremely beneficial to them and myself and my wife. And I guess I don't really have anything else to add. I am happy to help her. Or she is happy to help me maintain the easement that I already maintain. And I'm just really hopeful. Since, as she mentioned, it may be a potential hardship for my family if she were to build on our land without it getting separated into another parcel. We are both in agreement that we don't want anything to happen to our land or lose our land. So that is also important to us. But most importantly, I care about my mom and I want to be able to take care of her. So that's it.
Thank
Any
you.
questions for me?
That's good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody additional to speak in favor of the application? Anybody here to speak against? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. So do we have a motion from the board? Barbara, are you still thinking about it?
Yeah, I'm just kind of going over my thoughts in my head, to be
Okay.
honest with you.
No motion?
I'll make a motion to approve with the conditions stated by staff. And also regarding number 3, to recommend a shared driveway agreement for maintenance to be included.
I'll second that.
Initially, I kind of struggled with this one, especially with number C, because they could construct a second home, but I just, with the original house being fairly on the smaller end at about 1,400 square feet. The current ordinance doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I mean, to build a house twice the size or, at 700 square feet, it's just, to me, it's asking a lot. Just to either give up either be a small house or just a house way too big for one person and for maintenance and so forth. It just doesn't seem fitting. So, so for me, C kind of, I see it does kind of meet that criteria based on the ordinances. Yeah,
And there, I guess looking at B, conditions don't generally apply to other properties, but they do. There are other smaller properties with easements crossing others, landlocked.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry. Did we have a second on that motion?
yeah, Al,
I'm sorry. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Yes, I think that, in that regard, it does mean it in a sense. It does apply to other properties in the area. Exceptional conditions, I guess, being landlocked is one thing.
We have a habit of approving these. It seems like every month there's at least one. And I always have a problem with the extraordinary and exceptional. It gets to be difficult to find that condition in some of these. But I always try to, I guess, counterweigh that a bit with the understanding that if this was a developer that was willing to spend millions of dollars and buy 80 acres, he could build his own roads and dump them on the county, and the county has to maintain them. It just doesn't seem like the process is right to me, but that's my complaint. I don't fully understand why an individual that wants to do this has to go through a long and very confusing process, and developers do it by right. And that's the end of that.
Any further discussion?
I'll just say C is the one that hangs up for me because we're not supposed to weigh any financial issues in regards to our decisions. So I think I've kind of looked at this a different way in that this is a piece of property that really wants to be divided, and it's already landlocked. I guess that's the only that's the only hang up for me was the financial aspect of it.
And initially, that was mine too. But I think with considering the
Well, the house, the
size
house
of the house,
size.
yeah,
right?
that's where I
So that's where I'm going, is because initially I thought, well, you could just build another house on there by right, but the reality is it's not. It just doesn't seem like that's probably the right solution, so.
Any further comments? Have a motion to approve with the 3 conditions with the added
maintenance.
shared driveway maintenance. All in favor, raise your right hand. Unanimous. Thank you. All right. Next case, Z2145.
Good evening. I'm Rachel Grothy, zoning administrator for the county. This is a variance request for a property located at 3198 Pantry Drive. The zoning is urban development, and the applicant is requesting a variance to construct an office building and pole building within the required 30-foot setback. And I just wanted to clarify, I know there was some discussion in the report about a variance to the buffer that is not needed, and that won't be really discussed tonight. That was already previously granted in 2019. So I apologize for any confusion.
So you're talking about the 10-foot buffer? No, what?
Yes.
Yes, so no 10-foot buffer is needed.
Yes, that variance was already granted in
Okay, so we're only
2019.
talking about the 20-foot setback variance request.
That's correct.
Thank you, okay.
Yes. So the property is zoned UD, and you can see it here. Surrounding properties are UD, and then across the highway RD1 and RUD. And here is a vicinity map. So the subject property is a triangular shaped parcel that is approximately 1.73 acres in area. And there is a 150-foot wide Duke easement that bisects the property. So this decreases the developable area by about 19,000 square feet. The site is bounded by South Anderson Road, which is a major road to the east, Neely Store Road, which is also a major road to the south, and Pantry Drive, which is a minor road to the west. As it is bounded by 3 public roads, the property would be considered a triple fronting lot. So just to sort of give a little bit of little background and history. So 4 variances were granted in November of 2019. The first being for variance to commercial design standards. The second for installation of a required buffer within the right-of-way. And the third and fourth was to reduce the 20-foot buffer along South Anderson Road and reduce it as well along Neely Store Road. And so after the variance, the applicant came in for site plan review, and that was approved in February of 2020. So the uses that were approved with that and what he showed on his plan is lumber storage and sales, farmers market stalls, a sawmill, and an office building. And then they came in for a building permit, and that was approved in June 21st of this year. And that was to construct the office building. So right now the site is being utilized for the storage and sale of mulch. So should the applicant be granted the requested variance, he plans on developing the site with a variety of retail landscape uses, so including what's mentioned here, the mulch bins and sales, and then the other things, farmers market stalls, and the office. He has opted to, we spoke on the phone earlier this week after the packet had already gone out, and he doesn't want to move forward with the lumber storage and sales. So here is the approved site plan that was approved previously. So you can see the layout here, and there is the 30-foot buffer, or 30-foot setback that goes around the entire property. And then some of the variance requests from last time are shown on this plan. So one being the 10-foot type A buffer along Anderson and also along Neely Store Road. And then you can see that the buffer is installed off of the property and within the right-of-way. So this is what the applicant would like to do, minus the lumber storage. And I tried to sort of highlight here the unusable space, so sort of in that red triangle where nothing is really supposed to be developed because that's a Duke power easement. And then I also tried to include very rough. I think there are 8 mulch bins that are out there. I'll show you some photos in just a second. I'm not entirely sure if they're within the easement area. I'm sure the applicant could probably speak to that, but that was just me sort of eyeballing it, and it wasn't something that he had included on the plans. So you'll see here the variance that he's requesting is 10 feet for the office structure, and the farmer's market stall will be 14 feet from that property line. So just to provide you with some photos, we did take some drone photos, so this just sort of provides an overview. So that's South Anderson in the foreground there. Neely Store sort of up to the top left where the bridge is, and then pantry over there on the right. And then this is a little bit closer up, so you can see the bins a little bit more, and the power lines a little bit more clearly. And then this one here. So these are the photos I was using when I was trying to sort of guesstimate the location when I drew it on the plan to show y'all. So moving into sort of the approval criteria. So the first one is extraordinary and exceptional conditions. So the site is encumbered by a Duke easement, and further, the site is a triple fronting lot, which does create a 30-foot setback that encompasses the entire property. So the setback coupled with the Duke easement, that is extraordinary and exceptional. So therefore, staff finds that the proposed variance does meet this criteria. And then moving on to B, in terms of the conditions and whether or not they apply to other properties in the vicinity. So I looked at nearby lots, and it appears that 2 other properties are encumbered by the Duke easement. Both are developed. However, there are not any triple fronting lots within the vicinity. So therefore, staff finds that the proposed variance does meet this criteria. And then moving on to C, so because of these conditions, development of the property would be prohibited or unreasonably restricted. The required 30-foot setback does reduce the amount of developable area. However, the applicant has demonstrated that the approved site plan, with the approved site plan, that the site is developable. The approved site plan shows lumber storage, farmers market stalls, a sawmill, and an office. So it is the proposed expansion and use of the mulch that is necessitating the additional space. And the way I understood it was for tractor trailers to be able to get in there to dump off the mulch in the bins. So therefore, staff finds that the proposed variance does not meet this criteria. And then moving on to D, the authorization will not be of substantial detriment. So the encroachment into the 30-foot setback does not align with the public purpose of setbacks. So one of the purposes of required setbacks is to provide safe distance between development and the right-of-way. So encroaching into this setback by 20 feet, which is a full 2/3 of the required setback, that would place active use of the property too close to South Anderson, which is a major road. So this proximity may lead to public safety concern for both motorists and users of the site. So therefore, staff finds that the proposed variance does not meet this criteria. And based on that, our recommendation is for denial because we were unable to make all 4 of the required findings. I'm available to answer any questions that y'all may have, and the applicant, Mr. Kelly Allen, is here as well.
Okay, I'm confused with the mulch. So initially, they did not want, when they first came in 2019, the mulch was not part of the,
As I understand it.
right, and I don't remember, and I was here, and I don't remember that being part of the request. So that is an add-on, which is what they're asking the buffer for, correct? I mean, they're asking,
Well, they're asking to encroach into the setback. It is because of the mulch, but they're
Right.
asking to encroach into the setback with 2 of the buildings.
right.
So they can make room for the truck turnaround.
Okay. And then also, on your map where you show the unusable area,
Yes.
part of that goes into the mulch.
Well, what I will say is that this is something that I had just sort of put on here after our code enforcement officer had gone out and flown the drone.
Uh-huh,
And so this was just me sort of guesstimating
okay.
where they're located.
So is the mulch bins in the unused area?
I'm not
according to-
entirely sure.
You're not
In
entirely
the
sure?
unusable area, no. And I know it appears that way, but this was me just sort of guesstimating.
Okay, okay, okay.
But it appears that the mulch bins could get into that, they're definitely within the 30-foot setback, but that 10-foot buffer, is that a 10-foot buffer on that side as well?
Yes.
So it could, well, it's pretty close, but
There you go, that's a good picture.
if you go back to the other one, I think it's pretty close to 10, maybe a little bit more than 10. So we're being asked for the variance. Again, remind us specifically where this
So,
is, because we've been talking about different things, so.
Yeah, it's so
yes,
confusing.
so, and I apologize for any confusion. So at the bottom here, there is a main structure that is shown at, look, pointer, 10 feet right here. So that is encroaching into the required setback. The required setback here, because of the road, is 30. And then right here, the farmer's market stall would encroach and would be 14 feet from the property line, where 30 feet is required.
Okay, so that wasn't part of the 2019 agreement then, okay.
No.
But you also mentioned that the lumber storage is now out of the picture?
Yes, in talking to Mr. Allen over the phone earlier this week, that was what he indicated to me. And he can probably speak a little bit more to that. I was just sort of writing the report and going off of what had been submitted and what was shown on the plan.
So if you take away the lumber storage, you could move the main structure building
Yeah, I mean,
potentially out and
theoretically,
expand it, you know?
theoretically, it appears that way.
So US 21 has a 200-foot level,
That's correct.
so what he is proposing is to be 110 feet from the center of the road.
I have math anxiety, so I'm going to trust you on that.
Yeah, a lot of times, the right-of-way, if someone has a 30-foot setback, they're not 30 foot off the road. Sometimes they're 100 feet off the road.
Yeah, that's
It
true.
depends on how the right-of-way is measured,
Right.
usually from the center of the road.
Yeah, that is true. The way I understood it is it's a 200-foot right-of-way. Trying to think if any of these sort of show that at all.
According to this sheet, they're about 60, the property line is about 60 feet from the edge of the highway.
I was just about scaling.
And it looks like it goes uphill from the road, not downhill.
So I would be making an assumption here, but 200-foot right-of-way on US 21 would allow for the road to be widened at some point. State already owns the right-of-way, or whoever owns that right-of-way, as it's federal highway.
Sure, I would
But
agree
the
with
bridge right next to this is pretty much going to prohibit any widening of the road there. I mean,
Yeah, that's a
you're not getting
good
any
point.
wider with that bridge there. So I don't know.
Any further questions for staff? Thank you. Is the applicant present?
Oh, certainly.
y'all here, for this has been a difficult project. This is the last
Thank
piece of puzzle. I told Rachel I'd get her these a couple weeks ago, and I just got my daughter to help me finish them up today. I guess we could start with the pictures that I just gave you to kind of explain some of the questions that arose while you were talking to Rachel. On the first picture, as you can see, the hardship I have is not with the mulch, and I guess since we were talking about that earlier, I've got my application from 2019.
Sir, did you say your name and address? I'm
Oh,
sorry.
Kelly Allen,
Thank you.
4033 Walker Road.
Thank you.
And it seems like there was a little bit of confusion about the product line. Well, Homegrown's, the whole business model was several different profit centers, natural products. And this is my application that I turned in for 2019, and it specifically says firewood, landscape, grading, upcycling, local natural materials, landscape supply, which would be mulch, dirt, and natural products. Artisan, farmer's market, and local goods. So there's confusion there on the concerns that I added a product line to the site plan, which I didn't, but stormwater kept getting on me about the piles. They don't like to see the piles of dirt there without being secured with a silt fence. So I put in the bins that you saw on the screen, they're concrete block. It's a temporary structure. I'm out of the right of way on both sides of those bins, and they're temporary structures, and that prevents the erosion, the sediment from running off a lot, and it does a really good job instead of just having it in piles out there. So the bins were put there, and this lot has been and Josh and Jeff has been working with me for 3 years now, but it's been a difficult lot, and I've been out there for hours on the equipment and strategically placing my buildings and everything that I'm selling strategically just because of the space that I'm limited with. So the first picture, I guess it just shows you the orange cones there are representative of the footprint of the building. And if you can see to the right-hand side of that picture, I've got a propane dispenser there. We're gonna refill propane bottles there. With the 30-foot setback, the front of the farmer's market, the pole building, the open air building, will only be 15 feet from the front of the propane dispenser. That meets the National Gas Code. You can have the propane dispenser that close to a building, but I like plenty of space. And the right-of-way on the transmission line there dictated where I had to put the propane tank. So I had to come out of that 150-foot right-of-way. And not only do you have one transmission, the big towers, you have two transmission lines there and a distribution line. So it's actually a little more right-of-way there for Duke Power than is shown. So, and then on the back side, if you look back there to the back homes, so you can see a couple septic tanks there that I haven't got them to put in the ground yet, but the back homes, and it shows you, and I measured it, it's 81 feet from the edge of South Anderson to the back of the building. And that's with the approval of the variance I'm asking for tonight.
Say that number again.
Sir?
Say that number again.
81 feet.
81.
Yep. And picture number 2, it just shows you the orange cones, those represents the building footprint. It shows you the propane dispenser there where we'll be filling propane tanks. And page 3 is a roadside view looking south on South Anderson Road. As you can see, and this is one of the concerns that staff had, was safety, being too close to the road. Well, I've got an 11-foot embankment, so there's 11-foot elevation change from the road level up to where my building's gonna be, and then you got 81 feet there also. So the embankment's a natural barrier as far as traffic, and then as you mentioned, the expansion even if they added 2 lanes to this road, which I don't see anytime soon, you could get 2 more lanes in from the edge of the road there now to the edge of the bottom of that embankment. You've got 26 feet in that area there, and those 2 lanes, the existing 2 lanes are 28 feet wide. So they could get 2 more lanes in if they ever did want to expand. But, and then page 3, well, it's just showing you again the elevation change from road level on South Anderson Road to, the actual elevation that the building will be. And then the last page is, and one of the reasons I did this, because around town, I'm looking, and this 7-Eleven on the corner of South Anderson and Springsteen is 3 miles up South Anderson Road from my property, and the edge of their building to the edge of the road on a flat elevation is 28 feet. So it's 3 miles up the road from my business, and it's a flat elevation with no embankment that could, you know, keep the cars from entering the business or anything like that, or vice versa. And that was just one of the examples. There are numerous examples where buildings are a lot closer to the road than the 81 feet that I'm mentioning, but,
So you're planning on not building the lumber storage or the kiln?
after as I laid this thing out, I just don't have room. I just don't have buildable space, up in that area. And if you look at the lot, the way that I planned this is when you're coming in the entrance there, on the right-hand side of the lot is where all the heavy equipment is going on. On the left-hand side of the lot, on this side of that propane dispenser is where I planned on my retail to be, where most of your public's gonna be down towards the building and on the left-hand side of the driveway, just to keep the public out of the heavy equipment area up there at the mulch area.
Could we go back to that slide with, Rachel, where you had drawing? That one, yes. So that lumber storage is not gonna go?
We just don't have room. There's just no room.
So I had a question, could you move the main structure and the farmer market up and then to the left? And you could even expand the main structure?
You can't because you've got a varying right-of-way on Road 31. So it's not a standard right-of-way there either because of the bridge. Where the building is right now, I'm doing all I can do to meet my variances now. I mean, my setbacks now. And that's the reason I scrapped the lumber storage. I'm just gonna have to do that somewhere else.
Well, I think from a standpoint of being close or inside or out of the buffer, if you're gonna be within that buffer, it would be better from Neely Steel Road, Store roadside than 21. Or, yeah. I was just throwing an option out there. So you were asking this variance to have your main structure up to 10 feet, within 10 feet of the property line?
Yes, sir. I've already got my flower beds and all built from the last variance that y'all approved for me to the 10-foot buffer. Got my trees in and all that. And I would like to back the building up to that buffer, which is a 10-foot buffer there, which would make the building, like I say, 81 feet off the edge of South Anderson Road, up that embankment.
Okay. Does the board have any other questions?
So on the third page of what you just gave us, it's actually on the fourth page also, there's a building there in the corner. Can you kind of give us a bit of a
The taller
perspective?
building is my well house. And then the other building's just a temporary building we built the locker tools and stuff up with. We're operating, well, actually, we're not finished it. We've been operating off a picnic table with an umbrella. But the other building's just a temporary storage building.
So that building that we see there on that page is outside the 30-foot setback?
No, it isn't. I just got it, it's on skids. I just set it in there with my Bobcat.
Yeah.
Well, that's where we built it. Now, the well house is right there in the buffer. I think the well is 4 foot off the property line, is where they drilled the well. And the other building's just a temporary building. It can be moved anywhere on site.
So those trees that are planted along that,
That's my buffer, yes, sir.
okay.
And the building, the back of the building, and really, I really would probably stay off of that buffer. I just need to give me enough room between that propane dispenser and my building. I could probably stay off of that flower bed there, that 10 foot, another 2 or 3 foot, just to give me a little room between the back of the building and the flower bed, you know?
So,
But
to
that's
give us an
really-
idea.
That first tree, if you see that first tree
Can you
beside
get
the
the,
well
can you use the
house.
pointer, please? That would help us.
Oh,
Just
okay.
Yeah, because when you're pointing, you don't know what you're pointing
one
at.
right here?
Thank you. There
Yeah,
we go.
this first tree right here,
Yep.
the back of the building will be right in front of it. And then, like I say, that's the well house. And then that building there is just a temporary building mounted on skids that we got our tools and stuff locked in. And then the propane, you see the propane dispenser, so this picture, they must have took it before I put my cones out, but the edge of the building would be right in here somewhere, the farmer's market. It's just a 4-stall pole building, outdoor, you know, and then my main building will be up towards the well house. This will be my office and up here.
So, I guess here's my issue. So in 2019, we granted a number of variances for that property. Buffers, and I think it was wood siding, if I remember right. So, as one of the conditions says that the property, because of the conditions that are placed upon it, is unreasonably restricted from being able to be used. It actually says prohibited or, but I think we're out of the woods on the prohibited thing. Right now, we're just unreasonably restricted. So we granted a set of variances in 2019. Based on those variances, you got a building permit, and you're currently in operation, probably have been for a year and a half. But in order to grant this, we still have to be convinced that that property is still unreasonably restricted from being able to be being used.
Right.
And that's kind of the hurdle that I'm having a hard time getting over.
Right. Well, this, like I say, this property, and I believe Jeff and Josh have both vouched for me. This property has been it's difficult, and it has been, and it just seems like every time, you know, I've been out there for hours and hours and hours, and I've strategically done everything I could to make it work. The only other thing I could do there is just downsize the building, you know, and maybe even scrap part of the farmer's market building, because there's no other place that I can put the propane dispenser because of the right of way of the power line.
Power lines, yeah.
You know, and then if I put it, on the original site plan, we had the propane dispenser, and this thing's evolved I started in 2019, this thing's evolved. The propane dispenser initially was right up in here. But then after I got into the business, I never have been in this business before. I learned it as I did it. I noticed that, hey, that's high traffic, heavy equipment, tractor trailers, propane tank can't go up there. So I was forced to move it down here.
Why couldn't it go up there?
Because of up here we had the Bobcats rolling, we had the tractors, we had the tractor trailers, and
For
it
what?
would inhibit
The mulch.
No, so I'm talking, we're on the plan from 2019. What,
I had it up in the middle of the lot up
I
here.
understand that, but what, the plan in 2019, did it work? Or did it have challenges?
Like I said, in 2019, I hadn't learned that part of the business yet. I mean, I've been landscaping all my life but I hadn't done the mulch and the.
But that
Yeah,
wasn't
once
on
I-
the 2019 plan.
Sir?
But was there mulch and
Yes, I got my.
materials and all that
application
on
right
the 2019 plan?
That was what I read, the very first thing to kind of clear that up.
No, he had the sawmill and the lumber storage. It was supposed to be more lumber than mulch.
Can I show you this? This is my application this is where I turned it in 2019.
Well, the one that we had dated 11/26/19. This one,
Yeah, this one,
yes,
meaning this plan worked.
yes.
Were there issues with this plan not working?
Sir?
So we have a 2019 plan that we reviewed. Are there issues with this plan not working?
Well, yeah, because now, and that's when we did the variances and the last time, and now we've gotten rid of the lumber storage building because of
That's a business model. That's a change in the business model.
That's a square footage issue that I didn't have. I thought by the square footage that I was looking at on the drawings, but the more I got to work in the property and developing the property, I saw that, hey, I ain't got room for a kiln, I ain't got room for a lumber storage, and it's already drawn me down now to just my main building and my farmer's market, artisan market. So those two buildings have been completely scrapped because of the lack of room, buildable room for me to safely operate.
I think what Jeff is asking about, why did you move the mulch why did you put the mulch where you did? And why did you move the propane dispenser from where it is on this figure to where it is now?
Well, the
I
last
don't
site
see
plan
mulch on.
shows-
Right.
I don't see any
Right.
material
No.
storage on this plan.
Do what now?
On the 2019 plan, I do not see any material storage.
I don't have that plan in front of me, but
That's right there.
So on the application for 2019 for use of property, you have sawmill services, firewood, landscape, grading, upgrading, some kind of natural materials, I can't,
natural materials,
landscape supply, natural products, artesian farmers market, and local something, because there's the packet number's in the way. Can't read it.
The artisan farmer's market. You had two pole buildings for that. And it's on that drawing right there. That's the one that was done.
But he has no mulch on the site plan, there's no, that's what he had added to.
And so the reason you need to move the structures where you're proposing is because you're propane dispenser.
that and access to be able to utilize, the delivery of the products I get to the mulch bin.
Well, if the propane dispenser tank was not where it is, you wouldn't have any problem getting vehicles in there.
Right. But I
Right,
had to
so-
put it, because of the right of way of the transmission line, I had to stay off of it.
But could your propane dispenser go where your lumber storage was proposed that you're not gonna do?
Well, that whole area, like I say, is heavy equipment. And you typically don't wanna get your customers up there. They're gonna be parking right there which the parking area is right there to the right of that, to the left of that propane dispenser. So if I put it up on the heavy equipment side, then I'm bringing the customers and their vehicles up there to where all the equipment's moving.
All right, so any other questions for the applicant? None? Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Anybody here to speak in favor of the variance request? Anybody here to speak against? Okay, seeing none, the public hearing is closed. Do we have a recommendation from the board?
I'm gonna make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve and a second. Any,
So I'll explain my reasoning. I can see how, I've actually been there, been in the site. As it is right now today, I think there's enough room. But by the time you get into this, a parking area, if you get a farmer's market in there, you've got the main office there with restrooms, you've got, by the time you start getting other cars in there, you've got, I believe there's 2 loaders there for loading mulch and some gravel there also, onto people coming in and pick up trucks to pick it up. It's going to be kind of a scattered kind of place, right? So there's going to be people all over. Most mulch and gravel yards, that's all they sell, so it's drive in, load, get out kind of thing. This has got a lot of other things going on. I would say at first I was very concerned about the proximity to the road, but there is a significant ditch there. And immediately after, in fact, I believe the guardrail that protects the bridge extends not onto the property of this, but is in front of this. The guardrail and the bridge abutment, all these things are all well within that limit. So if there is a real safety concern, the safety concern is more with what, I think with what has been built there as part of the road and the ditch more so than building a building 80 feet from the edge of the road. So I don't believe it is a safety concern. And I can see where it does significantly restrict the ability to use the property. If there is a unique property in York County, this is probably it. I mean, it's I guess a great location right there on 21, but it has just been butchered with the power lines and 3 roads going around it and on and on and on. If you aren't going to use it for this, it's probably going to turn into what it was, which was a large lot for rotting wood. That's what it used to be. So.
I really have nothing to add. I think Jeff did a good job explaining.
I agree with that.
I have issue with it.
You what?
I said I do have issue with it. I have issues with, setbacks tend to be kind of especially on major roads, to me, tend to be, you've got a pretty good reason to violate that. They're in place for a reason, state all the reasons, but they are what they are. To me, this is the business model changed. And to me, that's not significant enough to violate the setback by a significant amount. And I understand Jeff's point. There's a lot going on in the site, and I think that's actually part of the problem. There's too much going on in the site. Maybe that's how the business model needs, what the needs of the business model dictate. But even within that, I mean, the architect to me is looking at this and going, it's not a very efficient layout. You can make it more efficient and possibly make it work.
one thing that helps me agree to it is there's only one road that you can access the property. And that's the Pantry Drive. You can't get to it from Neely's store, and you can't get to it from Anderson. So, and I agree with Jeff, you got 11 feet elevation change between the road and
Today,
where the building, yeah.
you can take dirt away. Nothing stopping you from lowering the site.
Yep. Okay. Any further comments? Discussion? We have a motion to approve the, and this is the one, let me make sure. Again, on the variance request, there were two of them, right?
There was just one. Remember, she said the 10-foot buffer was not part of it. It was her error.
Okay, all right. So I have a motion to approve the variance, a second. All in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. Thank you. Yeah, all opposed? Excuse me, one, okay. Thank you. All right, approved. All right, next case, C21-48.
Good evening, Jeff Kirshner, York County Zoning. We have a communication tower public service use request for a 250-foot communication tower. The applicant is Jonathan Yates with Optima and Verizon Wireless. The location is 2271 Burkett Road in the Rock Hill community. The zoning district is Industrial Development District, ID. The request is for a communication tower public service use, code sections 155.510 through 155.517, again for a 250-foot communication tower. Here's the zoning map. You can see Burkett Road's basically little industrial park road. The property abuts 77. Rock Hill is to the north and south of the property, kind of surrounding that neighborhood as far as Rock Hill's zoning jurisdiction and city limits. There's a railroad track to the north, and like I said, 77 to the east, and the industrial park to the west, and some commercial property owned by or in the city limits of Rock Hill to the south. Here's the subject property. It has some industrial buildings on it. A couple different tenants are in the building or in the buildings. Again, it's industrial property already. There's a power substation next to the property as well. The proposed tower is going to be on sort of the north part of the property, sort of up towards the railroad track. Here we have the survey of the property showing the proposed access and the proposed leased area of the applicant for the communication tower. And of course, the existing structures on the property. Here's a more detailed site plan, shows some setbacks, shows fall radius of the proposed tower. Again, the easement to the tower through the commercial property, the industrial property. Here's an aerial showing the proposed site and site plan. Here is a image of the proposed tower, a lattice tower, again 250 feet in height, and the proposed base area, fenced-in area that would be the leased area of the applicant and for the tower. Here's proposed landscaping that they just standard landscaping to go around the fenced-in area. There's additional landscaping there. Also, the applicant has put on the plans that the industrial buffers required for the industrial site, that those will be preserved. It's an older industrial site, so we had them, show that those buffers are in place as well around the perimeter of the whole property. Here's the coverage map showing the proposed tower and for Verizon, and then the the coverage with the tower. And that's why the applicant's proposing the tower. Here's a photo of the subject property. In that area, to the bottom is kind of in the general area where the tower will be located on the industrial site. Whoops. Here's the key map of different locations for photographs were taken of a balloon test for image rendering for the project of the images of the tower. You see in the way in the background, this is a corner of Mount Gallant and Langston. Behind the transmission lines, there's a balloon, and then the tower image behind at that location. Here's another site. I kind of picked, you have more photos in your packet, but I picked some of the photos for the slideshow. Photograph 6 shows the balloon at another commercial site down the road, and the proposed rendering of the tower. Here's another rendering of the tower at another commercial site. I think this is across 77, if I recall correctly, on the map. Let me show. We have the communication tower public service use approval criteria. And we have the different criteria. These are the same criteria that in your agenda and staff report. Staff went through it, looked at the site plan, did a site plan review, looked through the packet, believe that all the requirements have been met. So if you have any questions about any specific criteria, please let me know.
So is this near the Panther Training Center?
Yes, it's south of there.
Just south of there?
Just
Okay.
south of there, yeah. So because the staff believes that all the requirements for a communication tower has been met on this site, we have recommended approval of the public service use. The applicant is here to answer any questions. Of course, I'll answer any questions about the packet or the site plan.
Any questions for staff?
So I noticed one contradiction that maybe you can clear
Okay.
up. So in staff's analysis on page 75, number 7 says that a letter from the FAA is included in the applicant's packet. A tower exceeding 200 feet in height is required to have a light.
Right.
But on the rather large submission from the applicant, it actually says that a light is not required. Will not have any adverse effect on airspace and will not be required to be lighted.
Okay.
So
I think standardly, usually you get over 200 feet, it's lighted, but obviously the applicant is the engineer on this. And so I guess we would go with whatever the FAA requires in that case. But I think that's just a standard. Usually it's over 200 feet. It's light. Of course, I think, like I said, we would go with whatever the FAA requires. Was kind of stating like the standard that usually we illuminate. And we do have a requirement, if it is illuminated, that it has to be a certain kind of light that's not distracting or strobing or things like that. So, so that might be a detail on the actual tower plan that we need to address. But I just use like a standard note, because usually over 200 feet, we've found that that's like the threshold.
So I don't think they're close enough to have any effect on this, but in this application and the next one, both towers are very close to high voltage lines. Is there a standard about how close the tower can be to high voltage lines?
And I've asked the applicants, and again, different applicants, second applicants, to reach out to Duke Energy, at least on the second one that's asked for deferral, and to make sure they don't have an issue with it. I also asked them if in that packet, which again asked for a deferral, but about if they can co-locate on those towers, or if that's a possibility, and they did look at that and submitted in the packet some engineering on that. But what I've asked for them to do is to make sure the fall radius, which is an engineering fall radius, is outside on the site, means it kept on the site. So we have a minimum setback for all industrial from adjacent site, maybe like 30 feet. But obviously the fall radius could be more than that. And so we asked from a standpoint on the site to make sure that fall radius stays completely on the subject property, the one that has the leasing, and away from the neighboring properties, including the transmission line easement or property or wherever it is. And I believe that's correct. Of course, that's an engineering question, but we have asked to make sure that there is no issue with the neighboring properties, that there's, talk to Duke Energy, whatnot.
Keeping that fall radius within the property itself is that's not a requirement,
It's not stated in the ordinance, but I think it's what I've always asked.
because I thought there was a stipulation that it had to be not within so many feet of a structure.
No, it's a residential structure, residential.
Church.
Church,
Yeah.
school, maybe daycare, I can't remember. But not. a commercial structure.
Non-commercial.
Not currently in our code, we don't have a commercial structure setback, because obviously a lot of the towers, if you think around the county, are actually in industrial parks or business parks. We've actually discussed in the recode possibly having some setback even to commercial buildings, but currently in the code, it's not, but at least that fall radius we want outside, on the subject property, the property they're leasing, and away from other structures.
Okay. Power lines. Any further questions for staff? Thank you.
Thank you.
Would the applicant please come forward? State your name, address.
Jonathan Yates, 105 Broad Street, Charleston, South Carolina. First and foremost, I want to thank Jeff.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Oh, let me speak up. I'm sorry, Mr. Blair. Can you hear me a little better now? Do I need to
A little
get?
better, yeah.
It's on. Sorry about that. To Jonathan Yates, 105 Broad Street, Charleston, South Carolina. And first and foremost, I want to thank Jeff, Josh, and Marion for again helping me through this process. And Mr. Blair, I need to apologize to you. I walk up embarrassed. There is a typo in my narrative. This will be illuminated, and I'll get into that. And I apologize for that. I apologize to everyone. I think I'm perfect, but I'm not. Tonight, and it's good to be before you all again, we're going to talk about a facility on an industrial property. So something a little bit different. The property is owned by Mr. Hans Krause, a Philadelphia grading company. And you saw the overview of the property, basically two buildings there, a 30,000 square foot building that was built in around 1978, which is more of an industrial building. About 20,000 square feet of that is used by Woodson Steel for steel fabrication. And then next to it, you have what we call the showroom building, which a good bit of it is used by Stinger Baseball. Philadelphia Grading, the owner is also on site. They provide, interestingly enough, training equipment for football teams. They've been doing it a long time, and lo and behold, who moves next door to them? One thing I do have to say, living on the coast and in Charleston County, everyone is always bragging. We have Boeing, we have Mercedes, we have Volvo. In working on this site, I realized you got a lot more going on up here than we ever dreamed of. So the Low Country has to quit bragging. As you drive around through the industrial park and over to the Riverwalk Business Park, it is amazing the volume of business in York County. And that's why this site is here. The purpose for this site, it's very carefully centered between 4 existing Verizon sites. And the idea with this is to improve in-building coverage and really improve capacity. And if you just simply drive that area, you can see the need. What this is designed to do, there's an area to the Eden Terrace to the north, going south to Cinema and Galleria, east to Riverwalk, and west to Huey. You got so much going on. You got a lot going on this property in that, on the back of it, we have the Southern Railroad, you have I-77. So with everything that going on there, the networks get strained. The past 24 months was a particularly interesting time for networks. Had a lot of more folks were working from home. A lot of folks were educating their children from home. And again, what the need for what we call robust capacity and robust in-building was made even better. Hans has been great to work with. It's about if you take the railroad out, he's left with about a 5.7 acre property, exactly where Verizon need to be to solve this issue, and it had everything else going for it. If you looked at the aerial, the incredible tree cover around it, Hans was very good in where he let us place it in the rear of the property, and so this had all the sort of ingredients. When we talk about, and it was brought up a little bit earlier, and I want to address that, we are required to be 1.5 times height away from any religious, residential, or educational structure, and there are none in the vicinity. Couple things I want to touch on. I have Keith Powell here with me. Keith is very good at what he does, but sometimes he helps me out by being a little bit of a human easel. So I want to start with, let's go to, because it came up, we'll go to the fall zone letter, Keith, if we may. The facility is being designed by South Carolina professional engineer Stephen Yo. The first thing that Stephen does, he has to design the facility to the ANSI TIA 222H wind standards for that part of York County. In this case, he designed it for that requirement, which is both the TIA requirement, the ASC 716 of 111 mile per hour wind. In addition, he designed it for 30 mile per hour with 3 second, 30 mile per hour with 1.5 inch radial ice. In addition, what Stephen does in designing the pole, he builds in what is called a fall zone or fall radius. You have a 500-year catastrophic event. He designs a feature in there so it can give way in a catastrophic event, but what he does, it's contained in this case in a 79-foot radius. The idea for the containment, it's not a requirement under the code, but it's one thing we do at Optima. We have the fall zone designed in to ensure that it will fall inside the Philadelphia grading property in the 500-year event. The thing to keep in mind, and I know we have some engineers on the board, the event that could cause that to happen to this tower, there wouldn't be much left around it. Everything else would be gone. In order to get here tonight, we had to do a few other things. First and foremost, we had to have this reviewed by the FAA, who I will correct. Again, my typo. The FAA made 2 findings. They made a determination of no hazard air navigation. Also in your ordinance, we have to show that we will not have an adverse effect on the Rock Hill, York County Airport, formerly called Bryant Field, but I understand we can't call that anymore because of an airport in California has the name. So I'll just call it Rock Hill, York County. But we're 5.19 miles from the Rock Hill, York County Airport, and the FAA found a determination of no hazard air navigation. They did, as it is over 200 feet, the FAA, despite the ridiculous narrative I presented, will have to light it. In addition, this facility had to be reviewed by the state of South Carolina, the State Historic Preservation Office, and they concurred. Keith, this one turns a little this way. What they review for is any effect on any National Register property or National Register eligible property, and as you can see, as they found, there would be no effect. Finally, one thing that we have to do that some people don't know we have to do is THPO. Keith, he's pretty good at putting these boards together. This facility also had to be reviewed by 9 Native American tribes. Any Native American organization that either lived in or migrated through York County at any time has a right of review. So in this case, the review was done by the Eastern Band Cherokee Indians, the Prairie Island Indian Community, the Kialiji Tribal Town, the Cherokee Nation, the United Ketawa Band of Cherokee Indians, Eastern Shawnee Tribe of Oklahoma, the Loco Tribal Town, the Shawnee Tribe, and one we all know, the Catawba Indian Nation. So to get here tonight, we had both federal, state, and tribal regulatory, and then we delved into your ordinance. After we get through that, looking at 155.510, that's the blueprint for what we have to achieve. And I think if you go down one by one, thanks to Hans Kraus, we have a site where, for the first time in many visits to you, I have not have to ask for a variance. We found a site that met all the criteria of 155.510. I'm here for any and all questions. Keith is here. Keith did the photo simulations, which gives you a feel for visibility and where you can see it from and where you can't see it from. But if you have any questions, also if you have any particular questions about the property, the ownership, the owner, Hans Kraus, is here tonight. So while you have me, ask away. Now, I started being very embarrassed because I killed myself on a typo, but I've overcome my embarrassment, I hope, and I'm here to answer any and all questions.
So, in your proposal, your notebook, in tab 5, it actually says that the height is 265 feet.
That is the, you can pull that back up, Kate. That is the review, the height it was reviewed at, we're only 250 feet. The FAA approved it to a height of 265 AGL, 846 AMSL. And in part, we do, during the construction, there'll be a crane, so that'll go above the top height. So we go above that to have the margin of error and have that approved by the feds.
Okay.
Please don't let me get caught making two mistakes tonight.
So I did have a question on the collapse of the tower.
Yes, sir.
The 79 feet fall radius, only if it's a catastrophic event and it collapses. What if it's not a catastrophic event and just kind of just,
Haven't seen it happen, And again, that's where the pressure gets on the guy who sealed it. Mr. Yo puts his,
well, that's more on the construction side.
yeah, and they have to build it to his design. But again, we over-design, we have to. The best examples I can bring up, and not recent history, but it was a horrific thing, Hurricane Katrina, when it came through Louisiana, Mississippi. The interesting thing about towers, the only towers that got harmed really were the ones that got hit by a missile, like a section of a bridge flying through the air or a boat. We were sort of that's the first time we became the real heroes, where people realized with a lot of communication down, the cell equipment was still working. So we follow the ANSI standard, the ASCE 716, and we designed up to that wind speed with a safety factor.
Any further questions from the board?
Just kind of a general
Yes, sir.
question. It looked to me like on the coverage map, normally when you come here and you show us a coverage map, it looks pretty terrible where you're going to put the tower.
Yeah.
This one actually doesn't look all that bad. And have we progressed to the point now where, we're not really as concerned about the call quality, its data and its ability to call inside or use your phone inside of a building? And
It depends on where you are. There's still very big portions of the state where they are just trying to get base coverage. What you have in this case is what they're trying to improve, and it happened to me actually this afternoon. I had a little trouble getting a call out from that location. You have I-77, you have all the Panthers are coming, construction's underway, you have the industrial park, you have all that traffic. We have only so much ability to handle it. So the purpose of this facility is, again, we're trying to improve the area, Eden Terrace, Cinema, Galleria, Riverwalk and Huey, think of that box. We're trying to alleviate the problems. We're trying to bring additional capacity to take the pressure off the existing sites and, in addition, get the in-building. When I first started this in 1995, and I wasn't young then either, so we were looking at roadways. One of the first projects I worked on was starting in Charleston on 26 and going up to the North Carolina border. And in towns, we were hitting the major roadways. As the adoption, which has been phenomenal, and if you look around this room tonight, I noticed everyone else, as they're waiting their turn to talk to you, they were doing something on their phone. I don't know what they're doing. And that's what it is. We now we can have a base coverage in an area, but we have to have the ability for the phones to actually have the capacity to get a call out, to receive the data, that type of thing. So you're going to see more of that, not in as much, Mr. Blair, in the rural areas where you won't have the volume of users and the volume of strain on the bandwidth. But if you go to the context of the Rock Hill Industrial Park, Panthers coming, I-77, up above you have the multifamily apartments up above, you have the Riverwalk Business Park. You got a lot of people trying to use their phones. It's interesting, a lot of businesses you call now, at least I've noticed it, you might call a main number and then you get routed and you realize that the guy you actually talking to, he picked you up on his cell phone. He just has the main number routing to a cell phone. Particularly on industrial property where we used to have the, the small two-way radio system all over the plant, people are now just using their phones. If they need to catch someone in the middle of the plant, that old Motorola two-way radio is gone. You just call them on their cell phone. So again, what we're trying to do, there was some base coverage there. It worked for a while, but there's so much demand on it that they're trying to be preemptive on that problem.
Thank you.
Thank y'all. Thank y'all.
Anybody here to speak in favor of public use, service use, and variance request? Anybody here to speak against? Okay, seeing none, public hearing is closed. Do we have a motion from the board?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, have a motion to approve and a second. Any discussion?
I mean, I just think it meets all the criteria. I think he proved that, it's a high demand area and it's only gonna get worse with the Panthers coming in and with just the traffic volume and just that whole industrial area and mall area. I think satisfies your question regarding the light, which it will have. Yeah, I mean, it's just the wave of the future. More cell towers.
I would just say I completely agree with staff's analysis, 100%.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right, I have a motion to approve and a second. All in favor, raise your right hand. Unanimous. Thank you.
Would you like your notebooks back? I know we ask you this every time. We like to upcycle or recycle, or I will take the paper out for you. There you go, make it a little lighter.
I've never seen a rubber band that big before.
All right, our next case is number 4, Z2147, which we understand has been requested to be deferred.
Yes, the applicant could not make it. He missed his flight from Ralph Wingarden with Falcon Foster, was going to speak for the applicant. Like I said, he wasn't able to be here, and no one else was able to come to represent the applicants. And then late today, we received some emails from some of the residents having concerns about the project. We hadn't received those before. The applicant, years ago, this is a project that's been going for a while, did have a community meeting, and that's, from what staff understood, that's why they had the location where it was proposed. But with the fact that the applicant couldn't be here, and there may be some concerns from the community, they have requested in writing, email, to defer to the next meeting.
So did you say, I know there was something in the packet regarding, they requested to meet with the neighbors. Did you say they did meet with them, or that's part?
Yeah, they did.
Okay.
This project has been going on since 2019
Oh, wow.
and 20.
Okay.
Actually, the former zoning administrator, Brandon White, worked on this project a little bit. That's how long it's been going on. And from what I understand, they did have a community meeting, and that's in the packet. They discussed that, and that was like 2019, 2020.
Okay.
And from what I understand, when we spoke to them, that's why the location was chosen, because it's over by more transmission lines. But we have just recently received some emails. I don't know if there's any residents here, but are concerned about that project. But
Sure.
We did at least receive some emails between the fact that the applicant couldn't be here. He got delayed. His flight was missed. He's out of Detroit, or he's in Detroit. He couldn't make it to answer questions to the
Sure.
board, and also if there's concerns from the community, they requested a deferral
Till January.
till January
Okay.
at least, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So,
Do we still have information? Any questions? Open it up for public hearing as far as anybody to speak for or against.
My understanding was that there was no one actually here tonight to speak for or against
Okay.
it. And so we could have a motion to defer until the meeting in January and hold the public hearing at that time.
Very good.
Motion to defer till January?
Second.
Any discussion? A motion to defer to the January meeting, a second. All in favor, raise your right hand. Unanimous, thank you.
I guess we have to hang on to this.
Yes. All right, our next case, Z 2146.
Z 21-46, every time I touch that. All right, applicant tonight is Timothy Garland. The property location is at 1644 to 1692 Oak Ridge Meadows Court, and then 1883 to 1933 Corwin Drive. There's 2 tax max numbers, but there are 4 tax parcels involved. 2 are outside the scope of this variance. The zoning there is RD2, and they are requesting 3 road frontage variances. So you can see here the taupe pieces here. The first 2 are against Oak Ridge Meadows. Corwin is not shown, that extends between the BD3 and the RD2. Those last 2 parcels that are not outlined in red are outside the scope. Those are the 2 I mentioned. All 4 parcels have been rezoned to RD2 because it has multiple homes on just a few parcels. So we are in the process of trying to get this cleaned up with the applicant, Mr. Darby, the owner. So when we were going through everything, they rezoned to RD2 to get the minimum lot size. The 10,000 square foot lot size was key because of the proximity of the homes to each other. So they have completed that step. And then going through getting the individual lot, well, I had some aerials taken when the guys went out. So this is facing north. You're directly over the self-storage that is to the south. And that is Corwin along the bottom, and then Oak Ridge Meadow to the left, intersecting up onto Eastman, I think. So you can see the small homes. They were all built before zoning existed. So this is an old neighborhood. The Darby family has been using it as rental for the past several years, and they are working on getting it subdivided out so that the individual homes can be owned individually. So this is facing south. You can see the self-storage there and McConnell's Highway down there. The 3 homes that we are looking at are the one in the foreground, the darker roof next to it, and then the 3rd home there. That's lots 2, 3, and 4. So here is the proposed plat for the variance. You can see that all the lots, we did manage to get road frontage for all of the lots except for those 3. Having to work around setbacks, the 10,000 square foot lot size, maintaining wells and septic systems on the individual lots. There are a lot of challenges trying to get this one divided. So Terry Hucks, the surveyor on it, did the best he could, and this is what we were able to work out, getting everything taken care of. So we are requesting 3 rather small road frontage variances, just trying to get this one cleaned up, and it's my favorite thing to do is to clean up our tax maps. So going through the variance approval criteria, the use of the existing parcels is restricted by the existing non-conforming status of multiple homes on single lots. This variance request is a furtherance of creating a separate lot for each of the existing homes. So staff finds the proposed variance meets this criteria. The furtherance is they have rezoned. They need the road frontage variance. They go through preliminary plat and get the subdivision. Conditions do not generally apply to the other property in the vicinity. The surrounding properties appear to be conforming and consistent in their use with their zoning designations. So staff finds the proposed variance meets this criteria. Conditions, the applications of this chapter to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. The site is a current location of 6 homes on 2 parcels, and we're not including the other 2 that are outside the scope. While a grandfathered use, the lots are currently non-conforming, meaning accessory structures or additions to the existing homes are not allowed. Dividing the land would create a conforming use and allow individual owners to fully utilize their homes and land. So staff finds the proposed variance meets this criteria. The authorization of a variance will not be a substantial detriment to adjacent property or to the public good. The variance will not be of substantial detriment. It already exists. They're already there. As the proposed road frontages, while non-conforming, will not restrict the usage of the existing neighboring single-family lots. There will be no additional homes nor any change to the existing driveways for the existing homes. As such, there will be no harm done to the character of the district by granting of the requested variance. So staff finds the proposed variance meets this standard. Staff finds that it does meet all standards and recommends approval of the 100-foot road frontage variance. We do have one recommendation. There's been some concern about the location of the septic tanks and fields. They're very old. Sometimes it's a little bit hard to find those. We have it drafted out on the plat that you received, but you'll notice it's a pencil draft. We haven't actually located them yet. So our recommendation there is individual utilities shall be provided for each of the lots and shall be entirely contained on each of the lots. Go back to the plat. Do we have any questions for staff? This is an odd one.
The condition that you're requesting? Is there a time to confirm and correct if needed?
They would need it before they could get their final plat.
Okay, so they need to identify the drain fields and septic tanks and correct if they're not on the property they need to be on.
Right, yes.
So the condition that you're requesting, we can only make that conditional to the 3 lots requesting a variance. We can't make that conditional for the 8, can we?
Correct. These are the 3 that have the biggest challenges when it comes to meeting.
Well, it does look like the last 3, actually, 6, 7, and 8. I know DHEC does not allow a well within 75 feet of any part of a septic system. And those don't look like they're 75 feet, but if that's not our concern, then.
They've been there forever.
So how many of these actually have, are they on like a community well now?
They're all on individual well and septic. There might have been a couple of shared wells, but they all have their individual septic somewhere.
Yeah, if you got the well designated on the figure, whether they're existing. Yeah, I mean, if they're surveyed in as being there, they should be existing, right? Okay, all right. Any further questions for staff? Thank you. The applicant, please come forward.
How are we?
Fine.
Good to see you again.
Welcome back.
Well, welcome back, as always. Let's see what we can be successful today. So, all right. So, obviously, we're asking for a variance.
Name and address,
Timothy
please.
Garland, 361 Charlotte Avenue. That's my office.
Okay.
So, Representative of Darby Estates. So, obviously, we're asking for a variance for these 3, total of 8 properties, 3 different parcels. This particular parcel is the only one that currently would be non-conforming after we rezoned. So it's just a pretty much standard variance on the road frontage because we can't pull road frontage from any of the other properties. We've tried to move lines around without making flag lots, make it as clean as possible. And again, common sense, trying to fix this old mess, which Mr. Darby had a good time, I guess, developing over the years. So just trying to make it work. So from now and years to come, it will be clean. And whenever people resell one day, it's not going to be issues. And we could go ahead and get it sold now. 3 of the properties are spoken for. The remainder are not on the market and will not be going on the market until we have an approval. We're selling to the tenants with the 3 that are spoken for. 1 out of the 3, which we're doing a variance on, is one of the ones spoken for. So overall, it will remain a good single-family residence for years to come, and we're not going to have these non-conforming issues. So, questions? Okay.
No?
None for me.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Anybody here to speak in favor of the variance request? Anybody here to speak against the variance request? Seeing none, public hearing is closed.
I only have one question. I guess it's staff. We have 3 tracks with 3 different variances. Can they all go in one motion? Or
I'm sorry, one more time?
we have 3 different tracks with different variances. Do they all go into one motion?
Or should they go to each parcel?
It'd be better if you break them out.
Okay, that's what I figured.
Where's the survey?
Yeah, I mean, it spells it out right here.
Can we go up just by track 1, or track 2, track 3, and track 4? Is that adequate, or do you want the tax numbers?
PIN number? PID number?
Yes, that'll be fine.
Okay, I make a motion to approve the variance for track 2. It's an 18.51 foot variance, road frontage.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion to approve and a second for track 2.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty clear request. I think it's taking a non-conforming piece of property and making it conforming, and obviously this was all divided up before zoning ordinances, so I think it's long overdue. Oh, with the condition. Can I add that? Thank you. The condition of the separate septic and well.
I would also point out, I'm looking at the drawing, Darby's. Never mind, I see it. Never mind. Okay, we have a motion. Any further discussion on the motion to approve the variance on track 2 with the one condition of the septic and well on that, entirely on that parcel? None? Have a motion to approve. A second with the condition. All in favor, raise your right hand. Okay. That's approved.
I will make another motion to approve the 31.03 variance for tract number 3 with the condition as staff recommended of individual utilities, well and septic be provided for that lot.
And I'll keep it clean. I'll second it.
You'll second it? Okay. We have a motion for track 3. Any discussion?
Nope.
All in favor, raise your right hand.
I will make a motion for track number 4 for a 15.47 foot variance with the condition that has separate well and septic as staff recommended.
I'll second that one as well.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the variance with the condition of well and septic on that parcel. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor, raise your right hand. Unanimous? Okay. Thank you. Thank you. All right. One other item on our agenda.
Thank you.
Is next year's calendar schedule for meetings.
Are we open for discussion on that yet?
It's in your
Pardon?
packet, the last page. The
Well,
last-
I was just gonna say, April 14th is the Thursday before Easter, so I don't know if people have issues with that or not. I don't know if that's and if you don't, no big deal, but I just thought I would bring that to the forefront. April 14th meeting is the Thursday before Easter, the day before Good Friday. I just don't know if that's gonna be an issue for anybody, or I just thought I'd throw that out there. We had a problem with Valentine's, the eve of Valentine's one year, so we had to change it, so I'm just,
They call that Monday, Thursday or something, don't they?
yeah, it is Monday, Thursday.
Scoot Skin said will not be here.
Pardon?
I can tell you right now, our schedule's already, family schedule's already that far out. I will not be here.
And we
Okay,
have 3 other members here
not here.
not here to comment on it
Mm-hmm.
either.
And there are services on Thursday, So
Would,
I'm just,
so what would be your recommendation, Barbara?
well, I'm not recommending anything, I'm just pointing it out. I don't know if staff has a recommendation or we just leave as is. I mean, I'm just saying there's a chance we might, there might be more conflict than a typical, Thursday of the month because it is so close to Easter. And it could be spring breaks. I mean, yeah. I mean, I don't have kids in school, but I can't say for sure if I'm going to be traveling for Easter.
Is there an issue with moving it forward a week?
So, oh no, you go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, so to April 7th?
Well, a week before or a week after? Either one would
I would say
probably work,
the
right?
week before, because it's still a month out from March 10th. I mean, you still got a month, 27 days. So, I don't know. I would probably opt for April 7th, but I don't know if there's any other discussion.
So I'm not sure if the board has done this previously where you have adjusted it, but I will point out that the bylaws say that the meeting shall be held regularly on the second Thursday. So I'm not sure if that's something that happens each year, if you all move a few dates around.
We moved, in my tenure, we moved one day earlier because it was the eve of Valentine's Day. So we
Okay.
moved it to a Wednesday night instead of that Thursday night. We've done that once before in my tenure. I don't know, I can't speak for anybody else. It might not be a problem. I just wanted to point that out. I just don't know that far in advance.
Yeah, I mean, if there's an issue with
moving it.
doing it and not being able to do it because of the bylaws or some other thing.
Yeah.
Well, and if you've done it before, I mean, that's part of your practice is to shift some dates. That should be fine.
I will just say for a small personal note that I'm out of town a lot of times. And, I plan this schedule like a year ahead of time so that everyone in the company knows second Thursday of the month I won't be there. So
Okay.
if we don't do it on second Thursday of the month, there's a chance that I may not be able to be there just because it's not second Thursday of the month.
Okay.
It's
I mean, we can
just-
take our chance. Yeah. I mean, we can just leave it. Like I said, I'm not saying one way or the other.
Just leaving it if you don't have.
They don't have a meeting. We've had that before. You just don't have a meeting.
The cases.
They just go to the next month? Yeah. We've had that happen before.
No, let's
And we've had water main break too, and that went to the next month too.
let's just leave it like it is and
Yeah.
go with it. All right, so we
And-
have a schedule, submitted deadlines for, the schedule for 2022. Have a motion to approve? As is?
Oh, are you making the motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to
Oh.
approve as is.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor, raise your right hand. All right, unanimous. Okay. With that,
I make a
Nothing
motion
else?
to adjourn?
second, all in favor? All right. Meeting adjourned.